Hey, hi, how's it going? If you've been here before and you're back for more, I appreciate you to my very core. But if you're new here, welcome. My name is Becca, and to be honest with you, I talk about creepy, unexplainable things. A couple weeks back, I started a haunted location series, and that is a series we are going to be touching on today. And I am freaking stoked. When I tell you I spent days researching about this location, not only, okay, for those of you that don't know, I live in Alberta, Canada, and this location is literally 3 hours away from me. I've never had the pleasure of staying at this location because it is extremely pricey and your girl ain't that rich. But I may have to find some piggy banks to smash into because after hearing about the reports coming from this hotel, I may need to spend a night. The hotel we are going to be talking about today is the Banff Springs Hotel. But before we get into that, if you're not a fan of this 3, 4, 5 part series on TikTok, make sure to follow me on YouTube. The link is in the bio, where you can watch this video all in one fluid motion. But without further ado, boo boo boo, here is today's story. So the Banff Springs Hotel, as pictured in this photo, is located in Banff National Park, Alberta. The hotel features 76,000 square feet of event space, 764 guest rooms, a day spa, a grand ballroom, you name it, this hotel has it. On top of everything else that the hotel offers, it's also home to 2 championship golf courses. This beautiful historical site of Canada was built 4,639 feet above sea level, and it overlooks this beautiful valley where the Spray and the Bow Rivers converge, and it's in the Rocky Mountains. The view is just absolutely breathtaking. So back in 1883, William Cornelius Van Horn, so he was the general manager of the Canadian Pacific Railway. And at that time, they were trying to complete the Canadian Pacific Railway to connect the west coast of Canada to the east. And as they're almost complete, they're coming across this Rocky Mountain range. And he's brainstorming ways. He's like, you know what? We're almost complete the railway, but how are we going to entice people to use the railway for travel? It was then that he had this idea to build this monumental, luxurious hotel within the Canadian Rockies. Now, as for the exact location, he really wasn't sure on until one day 2 of his employees approached him and said, "Hey, you know that hotel you were thinking of building? Well, there's a lot of beautiful hot springs in this location, and I think that area would be perfect to build this hotel." Van Horn took one look at this location and was like, you know what, this is it. Without any hesitation, he immediately started drawing up blueprints for this hotel. And within a couple short years, the Banff Springs Hotel was built. In 1888, the Banff Springs Hotel opened its doors to the public for the very first time, and very quickly it became one of the top 3 mountain resorts in all of Northern America. From 1900 to 1925, there needed to be a lot of construction add-ons done to the Banff Springs Hotel as they honestly weren't expecting it to be as a success as it was. So within that time frame, they ended up building an 11-story tower that housed 300 additional guest rooms. They built onto the north and south wings of the hotel, adding more additional guest rooms. Ultimately, they were just trying to keep up with the supply and demand that this hotel was producing. Sadly, however, in April of 1926, a fire erupted in the hotel that ultimately burnt down the entire north wing of the hotel. Fortunately, however, an engineer that was working with the Canadian Pacific Railway decided, you know what, this is a national historical site and it needs to be restored to its original state. So this engineer, out of his own pocket, restored the Banff National Springs Hotel back to its original state, and by 1928, the Banff Springs Hotel was again open to public. Following the reconstruction of the hotel in 1939, soon-to-be Queen Elizabeth and her husband, King George VI, visited the hotel in 1939 on their royal tour of Canada. This brought a lot of tourism to the hotel, and business was freaking booming. But that would quickly come to a halt, as in 1942, the hotel shut its doors for the duration of the war, and it wouldn't reopen the hotel until 1945. Since 1945, the hotel has remained open. With millions of people visiting this historical site, sadly, murders, tragedies, and unexplained deaths are sure to follow. Many people believe the hotel is indeed haunted. There are countless reports of unexplained activity within the walls of this hotel. From tables moving from one side of the room to the other, blood curdling screams being heard in the middle of the night, pillows being yanked out from underneath the people's heads while they sleep, or being physically pushed out of bed. The list goes on. I would literally be here for like 20 hours talking about all the unexplainable things that happen throughout this hotel. So, for the sake of today's video, I'm going to be focusing on the three most commonly reported complaints of this hotel. The first one being the bellman, the second is the ghost bride, and the third, room 873. Sam McCauley, as pictured right here, was a bellman for the Banff Springs Hotel for years. And sadly, he passed away in 1976. Sam absolutely loved the hotel. He loved working in the hotel. He loved the people he worked with in the hotel. He just genuinely had a passion and a love for this hotel. So much so that he retired a couple times because every single time he would retire, he missed the hotel and his workers so much that he would end up coming back to the hotel to continue working. Anyone who knew Sam would describe him as an extremely pleasant man and would also go on to describe his love and passion for the hotel. Before Sam's passing in 1976, Sam would joke with his employees about, you know what, when I die, I'm going to come back to this hotel and I promise you guys, I'm going to haunt it. I am never leaving this hotel. It was taken lightheartedly and jokingly at first, until shortly after Sam's passing, reports of a bellman that was assisting guests started surfacing. One story in particular is when two elderly women accidentally locked their key card in their room. They noticed that there was a phone on the wall just down the hallway, so they used that phone to call the front desk to inform them that they had accidentally locked their key in their room. The front desk reassured them that it's no problem, it happens all the time. I'll get in contact with our bellman and he should be up shortly. The front desk then called the bellman and said, hey, these two women have locked themselves out of their room. Is there any way that you can go up and assist them? And the bellman explained to the front desk that I'm actually helping another guest at the moment, but I'll go up once I'm done. After about 10 minutes of helping this other guest, the bellman made his way to the two women. When he arrived to their room, however, he noticed something strange, and that was that their room was actually propped open. He peeked his head inside and introduced himself and apologized for being tardy. But the two women reassured him, like, don't worry about it. The guy that came up, he was so pleasant, he was so kind, he opened our door for us, and it's no problem at all. The bellman was extremely confused, as he was the only one with the master key. So confusingly looks at the woman and says, what did this man look like? The woman's description of this man was identical to Sam McCauley. Other guests, too, have reported seeing a bellman matching Sam's description. Reports vary from seeing him walking through a wall, to him walking down a hallway and all of a sudden just vanishing, to waving at guests from balconies, to helping guests turn on lights, to even going as far as helping guests with their luggage. Many reports of seeing Sam come from the ninth floor, but a lot of guests say that as soon as they tried to speak to him or offer him a tip, he became very shy and disappeared. The second most common complaint that comes out of the Banff Springs Hotel is the ghost bride. The ghost bride is actually probably one of the most well-known apparitions to reside within the Banff Springs Hotel. She even has her own coin and stamp. Let me show you. Coin, stamp. I mean, I understand that she was a bride in the 1900s, but I mean, come on. You made it look like that's what nightmares are made of. You could have made her look a little bit more elegant, in my opinion. Anyhow, the story of the ghost bride goes back to the 1920s, and the story goes that a young couple were getting ready for their wedding. The bride was fully ready, the groom was fully ready. So she had her makeup done, her hair done, her veil was on, her dress was on, and she was getting ready to see her groom for the first time. After she was fully ready, she began to descend down one of the hotel's marble staircases. Now, while I was doing some investigation on her story, I found two stories as to what happened on this staircase. One being that as she began to descend down the stairs, she accidentally stepped on her dress, causing her to fall. And the second story was that the stairs were actually lined with candles and that her dress had caught fire, which startled her, which then caused her to fall. Regardless of how she fell, the outcome was sadly still the same, and that is that she perished at the bottom of the stairs on her wedding day. Since then, hotel staff and guests alike have reported seeing this veiled figure on multiple occasions. When I say multiple, I mean thousands of times. They have seen her walk up and down those stairs. They have also seen her dancing in the grand ballroom. Many believe it's the ghost bride waiting for her husband as she never got that first dance on her wedding day. The third most commonly talked about thing that comes from the Banff Springs Hotel is room 873. Now, this room isn't necessarily paranormal, well, it kind of is. Later, you'll see what I mean in a second here. It's just a giant freaking question mark. So this room has a story of multiple variations. However, the one story that I continuously kept stumbling across while doing research was that a husband and wife and their daughter visited the hotel back in the 1900s, and sadly, the husband suffered from a mental snap where he ended up killing his wife and daughter and then committed suicide after the murders had taken place. So it was a double murder suicide. According to this story, after a lengthy investigation, the room was then refurbished, the carpet was ripped up, bloodstains were removed, and after cleaning up the room and making it presentable, it was then reopened for bookings for guests. But shortly after, reports from guests staying in this room just flooded the front desk. Rumor had it that guests that would stay in this room would be rudely awoken in the middle of the night by blood-curdling screams. And on several occasions, the guests would call down to the front desk in a complete panic, saying that there was blood handprints all over the mirrors in their room. When the staff would rush up to the room to investigate this claim, there wouldn't be anything there. Now, it would be weird if one person had made that complaint, but according to this story, it happened hundreds of times where hundreds of guests made the same claim. Due to the number of complaints from guests coming out of room 873, it was decided by the hotel to completely seal off this room from the public. And when I say seal off, I mean completely seal it off. The door was removed, drywall was put into the hole that the door used to exist in. It was taped, it was painted, it was made to look like this, a hallway. Now, as you can see in this photograph, this is a photograph of room 873, or what used to be room 873. You can see the light, and every single door has a light above it. This light, no door. Why? Now, a lot of people had questions. Why is this room being sealed off? Is it actually haunted? Or is this something else? A few years after this photo was taken, they would actually remove the light so it just looks like a hallway. And after a little bit more investigation, I came to realize that they didn't really seal off the room completely from the public. They actually just joined it to room 875 to make it a bigger room. But I still got questions. There are 15 floors to the Banff Springs Hotel, and every other floor except for floor 8 has a room ending in 73. I may be completely overanalyzing this situation, but why would you convert the only suspected murder room in your hotel to make it a bigger room? Think about that from a business standpoint. Haunted rooms are bad for business. At least they think so. I personally think it would attract more people to go and see if the claims are true. But think about it for a second. 873 was gaining a little bit of a reputation that it was haunted, and they thought it was going to be bad for business. So what did? They blocked it off from the rest of the world, literally. But what did that do? That just raised more questions and more interest. So you know what? We need to stop these questions. So let's just convert it into 875. And then when people ask about room 873, we'll just say it was just a renovation to make 875 bigger. I went down a rabbit hole and I'm stuck, okay? But that's just my opinion, so don't sue me, okay? So those are the three most unexplainable, commonly reported things from guests coming out of the Banff Springs Hotel. If you enjoyed today's recording, please leave a like or a comment. It's super rewarding. Wishing you nothing but a beautiful, blissful day. See you all next Friday. Bye-bye.